Jerusalem, if I forget you, fire not gonna come from my tongue. Jerusalem, if I forget you, let my right hand forget what it's supposed to do. Jerusalem, if I forget you, fire not gonna come from my tongue. Jerusalem, if I forget you, let my right hand forget what it's supposed to do. Jerusalem, if I forget you, fire not gonna come from my tongue. Jerusalem, if I forget you,
Welcome to Jerusalem. So nice to see you here. We are now in an amazing exclusive site. We're in Mount of Olives looking at the heart of the hearts, this soul of the world. This is Jerusalem. It's very hot right now and we are live. Just now we're standing here and I'm so excited seeing all of you from all around the world, all of us together connecting through this place, Jerusalem. Behind me, Temple Mount. But before we start the tour, seeing amazing sights, amazing views, we're going to meet some very interesting people. I'm privileged to have standing just next to me, Mr. Alan Schneider, the director of Bnei B'rith World Center of Jerusalem, just here. Can you say something for us? Greet us in the beginning.
Hello. Dear Bnei B'rith brothers and sisters, members of Jewish communities around the world, dear viewers. To fill the gap left by coronavirus that has made it impossible for you to travel here and enjoy the sights, sounds, smells, and tastes of Jerusalem, the World Zionist Organization and the Bnei B'rith World Center Jerusalem are honored to provide this unique opportunity to visit some of the major sites associated with Yom Yerushalayim and our capital city from the comfort of your home and with the help of two expert guides, Aviv Vishkowski, who is here with me on the Mount of Olives, and Dorit Graver. The program will feature special sites in Jerusalem, along with history, heritage, and interviews with some of those who fought in the Six-Day War of June 1967 when the city was reunited. Bnei B'rith has a long history in Jerusalem, beginning in 1888 when the Jerusalem Lodge was established with the purpose of creating a union to promote the concept of Jewish nationalism and to counter missionary activities rampant at the time. Bnei B'rith is among the international Zionist organizations that are members of the WZO, and in 1982 it established the Bnei B'rith World Center to serve as its permanent presence in Jerusalem and public affairs arm in Israel. Jerusalem Day is a significant watershed that signals the return of the Jewish people to ancestral places. But we celebrate still in the shadow of the continuing struggle over Israeli sovereignty in the land of Israel and even here in our capital. Before we set out, let's watch a special message from Yaakov Chaguel, Vice and Acting Chairman of the World Zionist Organization, our partner in this broadcast.
ממשלה שבדרך, ממשלה שהקימה את מדינת ישראל. אנחנו שמחים שאתם כאן, ואנחנו שמחים שהצטרפתם לסיור וירטואלי בירושלים, ביום ירושלים. אותה עיר שלא היינו בה 19 שנים, מ-1948 ועד 1967, שוחררה על ידי צה"ל אוחדה לעיר אחת. אנחנו פה בהסתדרות הציונית העולמית מתחייבים להמשיך ולשמור על ירושלים מאוחדת. מתחייבים להמשיך ולשמור על ירושלים כבירתה הנצחית של העם היהודי. גם כאן בישראל וגם לאחינו בתפוצות. זו ירושלים שכולנו מתפללים אליה, זו ירושלים שכולם כמאים אליה, זו ירושלים שכולם מתחברים אליה. אנחנו שמחים שאתם כאן איתנו בסיור. בואו נהנה ונראה את יופייה של ירושלים בתוך החומות ומחוץ לחומות. טיול מענה.
Great you're back. So we're starting a tour. This is going to be an amazing experience, seeing the hearts, the understanding the people, and understanding the history of Jerusalem. Now, Jerusalem is not a regular city, as we all know. Not only because it has an amazing history of more than 3,500 years, and it's our history, it's not just the history, it's our history, it's our connection What's the connection between the Jews all around the world since the beginning till today? It's Jerusalem. We're facing Jerusalem. We're remembering Jerusalem. Zionism is Zion. Zion is just behind me right now. Mount Zion, this is Jerusalem. So we're going to talk all about the history. But first, let's start just to remember what happened to Jerusalem from the beginning. And from when should we start? Let's start from Abraham, our father. Our forefather Abraham Avinu. And why with Abraham? It's because when we talk about Abraham, we would understand more about why Jerusalem is named Jerusalem. Jerusalem is combined with two words and something in addition. Let's start with the first one. When Abraham comes here, 3,000, almost 800 years ago, he comes here and he meets Melchizedek, the king of Salem. Shalem. Melchizedek, the king of Shalem. Malki in Hebrew means the king. Tzedek is justice. Meaning even when this was a Canaanite city, still Jerusalem represents justice. And Melchizedek, the king of Shalem. Salem, Shalem, Shalom, peace. Shalem, Shalom, whole, complete. This is Melchizedek. He's the king of Shalem, and this city is the city which unites people together. The people, the place of the heart of the world where people come and enjoy it. So that's the first time Abraham comes to Jerusalem. Second time would be when he comes for the binding of Isaac. Do you see the Golden Dome, which is on the peak of the Temple Mount? We also call it Dome of Rock, because under the Golden Dome is a rock, the foundation stone of the world, the peak of the mountain called Mount Moriah. That's over there. So when Abraham comes from Beersheba, he walks on these mountains just above. He probably walks through Hebron and through Bethlehem, and he comes to the Dome of Rock. There, he needs to sacrifice his son, just to see if he's worshiping God. It was a connection, there's a higher connection to God. He almost sacrifices Isaac, Yitzchak. But then, as we all know, he sees a ram, and he takes the shofar, and he sacrifices the ram instead of Yitzchak. And since then, we have the shofar with us. Another connection from us to God. Those who don't believe in God, let's call it the higher values which we represent. So it starts from Jerusalem. Jerusalem is, on the one hand, connects us together, and the other hand, it connects us to our old values and to our present values, to the higher values, and that starts straight from here. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they go to Egypt, come back, and then more story of Jerusalem. Let's just jump another almost 1,000 years till King David. King David comes here, and Jerusalem unites the people of Israel. We were 12 tribes, and Jerusalem unites us. It's the first capital of all 12 tribes of Bnei Israel, people of Israel. Israel is Yaakov, right? So this is a place uniting people, and how are we united? We can say we are united, but it's better to meet each other and to dance together, isn't it? So unfortunately this year it's a little hard to dance together, but 3 times a year people would come to this specific place to dance together. That was for 400 years, from King David during all the time of the first temple. And then Babylonians, they destroyed the first temple, and we're exiled outside of Israel. But 70 years later, we come back again to the same spot. The people who were there remember the temple. They're crying, we remember the temple. Do you understand where the temple is? Are you excited like I am? Do you understand that the temple is a place where there was the violins and the harps of the Levites, thousands of people playing music together? Do you think of the incense, the great smell that Jerusalem had? We know in Jericho there were goats who were sneezing from the smell. And we know that a bride on a wedding night here in Jerusalem never put perfume on her because of so strong a smell. Do you see a big, huge party of all of us, one people, one nation? 400 years, and then it was destroyed. As we came back, as we said, Second Temple, Ezra and Nehemiah, that's the Bible still. And then the Bible ended, the time of the Bible, and then we have the Maccabees, after the Greeks took over all this area. Just remember, when I'm saying Jerusalem, I don't mean all of this. This Jerusalem today is the biggest which it has ever been. Jerusalem of the Maccabees is only about from a valley on the left-hand side. There's like a rooftop, which we're going to see in the camera, and then all the way a little more northern to your right-hand side of the Temple Mount. That was Jerusalem during the Maccabees. Today, thank God, this is amazing. I hope you're seeing what I am seeing. This is just, and we are now on Yom Yerushalayim, all of us together. So exciting, isn't it? So second temple was here for 586 years, meaning this is Jerusalem, this was the capital of our nation. But then, unfortunately, the Romans came in. And the Romans started destroying and killing and riots all the way from the north to Jerusalem. And then after 3 years of trying to keep Jerusalem as our capital, it also was burnt and destroyed. And the Jews are sent for 2,000 years outside of Jerusalem when we don't have an independent country, independent state. But still, we're fighting the flow. Still, we're aiming and we're looking forward to the day that would come that we are still going to come back here and we can put our flag and sing a Hebrew song. And the day has come. So, after the Romans came the Byzantine, which means the Romans which became Christian, and then came the first Muslims, and then came the Crusaders, that's year 1099 to the Common Era, and then came here Salah ad-Din Ayyubi, that's 1187 in the Common Era, then came back the Christians, and came back the Muslims, this time they're called Mamluk, and then came here the Ottomans, their central command is in Turkey of today, and then came the British after First World War, and then in 1948 we have a country, Israel, dependent state. But the war was very difficult. It was very hard to defend our borders. And we lost Jerusalem. We have a country, but we lost the heart. What do you think, a body without a heart? What does that mean? So still we're happy, we have an independent country, but still we don't have a heart. And we are now in Mount of Olives. What you're seeing in the view is exactly what the Jordanians saw for 19 years. Cannons can just artillery hit, and we are here today. And how did that happen? That's because of 1967. Tell you the truth, the war didn't start here. The war was supposed to be only against Egypt, only at the southern part of Israel. We didn't expect a war. We thought we had an agreement with the Jordanians. You stay quiet, we stay quiet, everything was being great, okay. But then they started the war. They started attacking in the southern part of Jerusalem, the commissioner's office just in the southern part of Jerusalem. So we had to defend, don't we? We had to defend our state, our city, our kids. And the Brigade of Jerusalem came from that area, from the south. All these mountains is the Brigade of Jerusalem. And then the paratroopers would come later on, and they would attack or mostly defend the city from the northern part. There's like a flag, if you can see on that peak, there's like an antenna, and next to a flag, that's the ammunition held today. So the paratroopers came from this area, and the Brigade of Jerusalem came from the left side, and they came up here to Mount of Olives on the third day of the 6-day war, and from here, Motagur, just next to us, says in the communication, even to the radio, in Hebrew, Mefakdei Agdudim, the commanders of the battalions, Anu umdim al kavareches. We're standing on the ridge, on the mountain, looking upon the old city. Which old city? The old city. We've been yearning and waiting for and dreaming for the past 2,000 years. And we're going to go inside. The tanks of Eitan are going to go in through the Lion Gate. Lanua, lanua, come on, go, go! El Ashah, Misdar Siyum, the ending would be Ala Rachava, on the plaza. Tell the truth, nobody would say such a command in the communication. A commander never says where he is, because he's afraid maybe an airplane or something would bomb him now. And I asked once, why did Motagur say that command? Why did it say it this way? And someone told me, you know why? He wasn't speaking to the soldiers. The soldiers knew the command. He was speaking to us. The people who are at home, who couldn't come because of the war, he's telling them, we are going inside the heart of the hearts. We're coming back home to Jerusalem. So, what are we going to do? We're going to do this. We're going to start walking, and we're going to go in the same footsteps of the soldiers, of the paratroopers who came here 53 years ago. Today, we're going to walk down all the way to the area of the Lion Gate, and then we're going to go inside the northern part of the old city. see some amazing places which I'm sure that most of us have never been there. Even Israelis don't go there, but we're going to go there. We have special exclusive areas that we're going to go into private homes, look upon from the roofs, and then we're going to end at the Western Wall. We have some surprises along our tour, so are you joining me? So let's start walking. We're walking this way, and let's start first with, still Har Zeitim is this big cemetery. This is the oldest cemetery that's in the world, that people are still buried in it. We have some graves even from the first temple and from the second temple, and we are starting to walk. Great! So I hope your air conditioning is great. I would like some air. Where's the air? And we're looking upon the Temple Mount, looking at all this amazing view. Look, we're just tasting Jerusalem, but you should come, because the smells, the mood, the holiness you can feel when you're walking here in Jerusalem, it's really hard to transmit through the camera. But we are now in Har Zeitim. What are we going to see? Well, if we now take a whole tour, it's about 2.5 hours, just a small beginning of a tour in Mount Har Zeitim. Hundreds of thousands of people are buried inside. We have even Eliezer ben Yehuda is buried here, who started speaking Hebrew as a spoken language. Or we have here the people who started the first neighborhoods outside the old city from 1860s. We have here amazing people who are also talking about the culture and part of what we are and what we represent today. We have people who founded a lot of organizations. We have warriors and defenders from the beginning of Israel, even before Israel is established. We have here rabbis, Rav Kook, who's also one of the, we have authors and poets. We have so many things here in Mount of Olives, hundreds of thousands of people. And also we have caves from the second temple and from the first temple, which one of them is just next to us. So here we have a car. Look, this is live, real live. You're seeing me right now. So if we're going to just stop for a minute, I know you can't see too well, but look at this house. And this house is built upon a cave from the first temple. From the first temple. It's tradition that in that cave are buried Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. These are the last prophets who are mentioned in the Bible, just over here. Now you know what that means? What is Zechariah? What did he say? So the truth is, Zechariah, for example, he told us that Jerusalem, in day to come, when people, the Jews, are going to come back to Jerusalem from the four corners of the world, there's going to be a miracle. And the Mount of Olive is going to crack to two, and water is going to come from the Temple Mount all the way to the Dead Sea and bring fresh water there and relive the Dead Sea. So then fish are going to be there and people are going to be fishermen in the Dead Sea. So what do you think about this prophecy? Is it exact, or is it just trying to remind us or trying to tell us that something's going to be later on? I heard an amazing explanation saying, do you know what Har Zeitim means? What Mount of Olives means? I would tell you. Mount of Olives is the opposite from the mountain against us. Meaning Temple Mount represents life. Represents life. And Mount of Olives represents death. That's why over there, people who are tumah, they are unpured of death, they can't go Temple Mount. It represents holiness. It represents peace. Then you can't go there. But on the other hand, this is the biggest graveyard almost in the world, or the most oldest graveyard in the world. So this is life, and this is death. And what does Nebi, the prophet Zechariah, say? He says that water, which represents life, are going to come through Har Zeitim, and they're going to take death away from the world. One of the stories of the people who are buried here in Mount Zeitim, Olive Mountain, are these people. We can come closer and see that over here are more than 40 people who died in 1948. They died in 1948 in the Old City. Meaning Jews were there in the Old City. There were a majority from 1840. But in 1948, we had to surrender because the Jordanians took over. One of the graves just over there is of a 10-year-old Nissim Gini who died at 1948 as a defender of Israel. He defended his house, his family, and the Jordanians. A sniper just shot him. Anyhow, we're going to go to the next stop, but we have another surprise. We're going to go to another crew. Just hand the microphone to Dorit, which is waiting for us in a very special place. Dorit, are you with us?
Hi everyone, welcome. I'm so happy you guys are with us. I'm Dorit Greiver, I'm a tour guide and I live right here in Jerusalem, and I'm happy you guys joined us in this special day. So usually this day looks very different. The streets are full with people dressing blue and white, waving in flags, dancing, singing songs about Jerusalem. Today, this year, this day looks very different. The streets are quite empty. The city is, as you can see, is quite empty, but maybe that makes this day to be even more special and more exciting. And we're going to walk in the footsteps of 1948 till 1967, and we're going to have our own Jerusalem Day. And if we're talking about the establishment of Israel, if you want to start the story from the beginning, from 1948, so there is one place we should start with, and this is the place we're standing right now, which is the National Institutions Building. The building where the country, Israel, which is about to be established, where it's all started. I'm talking about the Jewish Agency, the World Zionist Organization, and we're about to meet Eitan, who works here in the World Zionist Organization, and going to tell us a bit about the history of the building and about the history of these places that made Israel to be what it is. So follow me, we're going to meet Eitan. Hi, Eitan.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Same here.
Yeah. So, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And we're starting the story of Israel from the beginning, from 1948. So this is the place to start, right?
Basically, way before that, actually, 1897, Theodor Herzl, the first Zionist Congress, after 2,000 years in which the Jews were in exile, the first time that Jews gathered together in one place in the Zionist Congress, 1897. And this building basically comes after that, when Herzl establishes the World Zionist Organization in 1926. They have a plan to build an institution that will be the building of the upcoming State of Israel, the government of the State of Israel.
So no one even thinks about Israel, about State of Israel yet.
Apparently, a lot of people, according to Herzl, who thought about like the 50 years in advance, he knew exactly what was going to happen, and this place was built.
Wow. Okay. So this is beautiful. It's very impressive.
Indeed.
So it's a bit hidden from the street, right?
Kind of. Yes. There's a lot of stories on this place. I mean, this was the first Israeli government, the first Israeli parliament, the first Knesset was right here. It started with one building, the World Zionist Organization, joined by the Jewish Agency that was established years later in order to help bring out Jews to the land of Israel, as well as Keren Kayemet Le'Israel, which is the JNF, Jewish National Fund, to redeem land, and the Keren HaYesod in order to get funds for the Jewish upcoming Jewish state.
Wow. All right. So tell me, I like the balcony, by the way, the porch.
Oh,
it's beautiful.
Beautiful story, by the way.
Okay.
1947, the partition plan, United Nations.
November 1947.
Exactly, 29th of November 1947. Half of the leadership of the Yeshuv are in Tel Aviv, including Ben Gurion and the rest of them. And the other half are stuck here in Jerusalem. Why? Because of the siege by the Arabs that was taken by the Arabs. And once the people who live around here are hearing the great news of first time in Jewish history that the world recognizes the Jewish right for the land of Israel. They come here and start celebrating with happiness, with dances and stuff like that. And right there on that balcony, you'll see in many of the photos, you'll see Prime Minister Golda Meir, including the chief rabbis who were not able to go to celebrate together with Ben Gurion in Tel Aviv.
So the local celebrations in Jerusalem were right here.
Right here.
Amazing. All right. What else can you tell us about history of the place? What else happened here?
Well, first of all, Ben Gurion's office.
Right here.
Right here.
Wow.
We're going to go there.
If you thought that Ben Gurion is only in the Negev and Tel Aviv, no.
Absolutely
so Jerusalem.
not. Right here, from like years before the establishment of the State of Israel, and also years after.
Wow.
Until 1958, he has his office here. On the second floor, right there, the first president of the State of Israel, Chaim Weizmann, was sworn in 1949.
Wow.
It will be very interesting to get inside the building and see much more.
All right, let's do that.
Let's go.
Okay. Follow us. It's beautiful. By the way, this building was designed by Yochanan Ratner.
Right.
It was a whole competition.
1926, right. Yes.
37 people were competing and he won. They required that the building will be 2 floors, not, which is supposed to blend in the local landscape, and Jerusalem stone, of course.
Right.
In the international style, we know it as the Bauhaus, but also a lot of Jerusalem elements remind us David Citadel, which is very humble and nice, but still giving a lot of Jerusalem style and
overlooking to the old city.
Exactly.
And one more thing, in 1948, March 11, 1948, there's a car bombing here by an Arab worker of the American consulate.
Wow.
We used to work here with the Haganah. You're gonna be able to find a lot of slicks, a lot of places with weapons in which the Yeshuv used to hide here. However, in 1948, he comes here and unfortunately kills 12 people, or 12 people working of the national institutions. Amongst them, one of the injured were the chairman of the Jewish Agency of today, Mr. Herzog.
Wow. Okay. This bombing was part of 3 other terror attacks right here in Jerusalem. One in the Palestine Post, in Ben Yehuda Street, and that was a very meaningful one and very effective one. Probably influenced everyone. Happening right here in the heart of the Zionist institutions. Let's go in.
Let's go.
All right.
So I think our first stop will be the Ben Gurion's home.
Let's go for it.
Very modest and unfortunate. It's beautiful because people did not even know, did not even plan to have a State of Israel right here, and this place became the office of the newly elected Prime Minister David Ben Gurion. Later on, the meeting place of the Israeli government. A lot of the design here stayed from many years ago. Like basically, not a lot changed.
Very simple. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. On the sides of the walls, you can see many of the signs of the pre-State of Israel, calling for people to join together, to make Aliyah, donate money for the upcoming State of Israel. And right here was David Ben Gurion's office between 1935, years before the establishment of the State of Israel, until 1948. It kept being his office many years later, even after the establishment of the State of Israel, and also became the meeting place of the Israeli newly elected or newly State of Israel, the government of the State of Israel.
All right.
And we can get in.
Here is Ben Gurion.
Well,
wow.
Humbly, I'm getting to this room. Many slicks, weapons have been found. Do not forget, this was also a meeting place or like a camp of the Haganah underground. and out of which people started like fighting for the state of Israel before the 1948 war.
Can you tell us a bit about what's happening here today?
Yes, absolutely. The Jewish Agency, the World Zionist Organization. Yeah. So, the World Zionist Organization is the umbrella organization of all other organizations that are working in order to help the Jewish people. Also, in nowadays, in order to better connect with the diaspora, teaching Hebrew, countering anti-Semitism, Aliyah. So we have here is the building. World Zionist Organization. The other side of it is the Jewish Agency, JNF. So all four organizations that basically built the state of Israel and continue to work in order to maintain the connection between us, the state of Israel, and the Jewish world.
Wow. So the Zionist heart is beating right from here.
Right here.
All right. Perfect.
And there you'll see the balcony. Like it will be of 1947, and we're going to head out towards the courtyard of what is called like the name of this building is the National Institutions Building.
All right. Thank you, Eitan, for that.
Thank you so much.
Any special words for this special day, Jerusalem Day, and to people all over the world who are watching us right now?
It's been over 3,000 years of yearning for coming back here to the land of Israel, to Zion, to Jerusalem. And we're here. Let us pray for the continuous reunification of this amazing city that respects every religion, every background under the state of Israel. We came here, we left once, we're not going to leave again.
Wow, amen. Thank you for that.
Happy Yom Yerushalayim.
Amen.
Thank you.
Eitan, thank you so much.
Toda lachem.
All right. So we are still from here. It's the perfect spot to start our story about 1948, connecting 1948 to 1967, and we're going to walk live from here to the area of the old city, okay? Although it's about 100 degrees Fahrenheit around here, I hope you guys are in the air condition, in a cool place, and we're gonna walk in the footsteps of the people who lived here in a crazy reality of 19 years that Jerusalem was split between East and West, Jerusalem and Jordan, and to try to feel a bit about this experience of living in a city which is split. And then in 1967, how was the feeling? How was the atmosphere? What was here when Jerusalem was united? We're gonna give we're gonna walk. Let's walk. Walk with us. This street, the King George Street, was actually this place. Had a lot of fences, barbed wires, a lot of area that was actually defending these buildings from snipers. From 1948 to 1967, that was almost the border. And since people were afraid that snipers and shooting will be towards the building, so this street, which looks very calm right now, was actually a zone of war, and therefore this place was so fortified. From here, we're going to walk towards Tzahal Circle, towards the old city, and let's see what's going on with Aviv right now.
We are live from Har HaZeitim, Mount of Olives. While you were in Rechavia, talking about the history of only the last 100 years, we went down this mountain, and it's hot here, but I hope you're enjoying the tour. So you see more of the graveyard continues all the way down the slopes. Of course, there are a lot of Christian sites which are northern to us, and we're going down, trying to go in the same footsteps of the soldiers of 1967. One of the monuments here in Har HaZeitim is just over there. You can see it. It's one of 3 amazing monuments. We're talking about something like a 5-story building of a monument which is more than 2,000 years old. It's probably, someone said maybe it's the grave of Agrippas. It's known as the grave of Shalom, the son of King David. But it's still over there, and you have to come in a different tour to see those amazing monuments. But I want to tell you about the heart of the hearts. Let's talk about the Temple Mount. You're seeing now a corner. The corner which you're seeing is the beginning of the eastern wall. Meaning we are along the Mount of Olives. We're in a valley called the Kidron Valley, a very important valley, because some even call it the Valley of Jehoshaphat. In Hebrew, Shaphat is judgment. Joe or Yeho is a nickname for God, is one of the names of God. Meaning this is the place of judgment. According to some of the heritage and some of the beliefs, this is a place of judgment, meaning in day to come and reincarnation. Some of the people and the spirits are going to go all the way here to Mount Hazartim, Mount of Olives, and there's going to be a bridge, a spiritual bridge, just over here, spreading from Mount of Olives all the way to Temple Mount. And those who are tzaddikim, those who have good deeds, are just going to walk on this bridge. And those who are not so good during this life in this world, they're going to fall off from the bridge all to this fire, which reminds us some of hell and Gehinnom. Anyhow, the bridge goes all the way to Temple Mount. And what you're seeing, as we said before, it's the eastern wall. Eastern wall? Is there an eastern wall? Yes. Exactly like there's a western wall, there's an eastern wall. I want to show you this picture. If you see this picture shows you of how the temple was 2,000 years ago. This, as you see, is the Temple Mount Plaza. The mountain, Mount Moriah, was only here, a small mountain during the first temple, which was much smaller. During the second temple, we enlarged the temple, so we have enough place for everybody to dance. Even today, the huge Temple Mount Plaza is the same plaza from the second temple. And in order to hold this plaza, we built 4 retaining walls. Somewhere time of Herod, King Herod, the great builder. So if we look up again at this picture from the second temple, this is a western wall, this is the southern wall, the eastern wall, and the northern wall. Here's a plaza where thousands of people can dance together. Something like 17 football fields can fit in this plaza. Temple itself, 17 floors high. We're talking about something amazing. People from all around the world came to see just the design, just the place as an amazing house for God, amazing house for the heart of a culture. Anyhow, where are we in this picture? We're here on this side. You are mostly remembering and seeing the western wall. Unfortunately, you're not even seeing all the western wall. You're seeing only 1/9 of this wall, which we're going to get there in about an hour from now. We're going to end this tour at the plaza, known plaza of the western wall. But we are now seeing the eastern wall. And the eastern wall is also in the outside of the old city of Jerusalem. Look at this. There's a gate just in front of us, but the gate is sealed. It's called the Gate of Mercy. In English, it's called the Golden Gate. Golden Gate, not in San Francisco, here in Jerusalem. The Golden Gate, maybe because of the gold of the sun just hitting the wall and it looks as gold. And why is it blocked? Some say because in days to come after the temple, this turned out to be outside of the old city. And when it's outside, we don't want enemies to go into the Temple Mount, so it was closed. Other people say, no. It's the Muslims who know that this is the judgment day from here. And the Jews believe that the Geulah, the redemption, the salvation is going to come from the east. So they locked the gate. So the Messiah, Mashiach, can't come from the east. Which one of them correct? Tell the truth, we don't know. I can just tell you that the Messiah can also come from another gate. Okay? He can come from here and then go around like we are going to go today. So we're continuing our walk. We in one take. This is live from Mount of Olives, Yom Yerushalayim. Isn't it exciting? And we're walking this way on the footsteps of the soldiers. But I want to tell you that as we're walking, the soldiers came down from Mount of Olives on the 3rd day of the war. But what happened on the 2nd day? Oh, let's even start before. On the 1st day of the war, here in Jerusalem was only one brigade, the Brigade of Jerusalem. They were here just defending, waiting for the Jordanians, if they come, just to stop, to prevent them from getting into our neighborhoods, into our homes. So that's how the war began. At 9 o'clock, they start shooting. We asked for permission. Can we shoot back? And the high commander, the Israeli high commander, he said, no, don't shoot back. We don't want to start the war. At 10 o'clock, 10:30, almost 11, approximately, cannons, artillery of Jordanians are shooting Rechavia, like where you've been before with Dorit. They're shooting there with cannons. And we're asking Nakis, the commander, can we shoot back? And he says, no. They're just showing the Egyptians and the Syrians that they're part of their nation. They don't really want to start the war. But when they take over the commissioner's office over there in the southern part of Jerusalem, then we have to prevent them. You know, they could have just taken Shai Agnon, the Nobel Prize Shai Agnon, which is living 5 minutes from the border in 1967. Anyhow, that's the first day when they are in the south. Most of the battles in the south. The paratroopers were supposed to be fighting in the Sinai Desert, Sinai Peninsula. And then at about 10, 11, they canceled their mission because we had the amazing Air Force. They did a great job over there in the Sinai Peninsula. Then we came in with 3 divisions and the mission of the paratroopers were canceled. We didn't need them there. If you can see from here, we can't really see it. It's a Rockefeller Museum all the way up. And they were going down and they were supposed to take a left and go to the Mount of Olives. But we missed our left. And instead, they continued walking along this street. So they were just driving here. First, a tank, which was coming here, and suddenly, just amazing, the battalion, the Jordanian battalion, which were on Temple Mount. Jews would never put armory on the Temple Mount. They were shooting from this area, and other Jordanians shooting from that area. And the tank here was stuck. It was more of his friends telling his friends, retreat, retreat, retreat. And he's going all the way there, and he's protecting them, and he's over here. The commander of the tank was called Rafi Shaya. He had glasses. The glasses were hit. He also got wounded. Blood. He's wounded. And he asks one of the staff, one of the people, the crew of the squad of the tank to replace him because he can't see where the tank is going. On the one hand, you know, tank is built with two different pieces. The lower part with the wheels and the upper part is with a cannon. So he's like this, wanting to shoot to prevent the Jordanians from shooting our friends. And the tank is this way, on the just trying to U-turn back there. He's asking his soldier, take over, I can't see anything. And the soldier comes out of the tank, raises his head, seeing that the cannon is there, and thinks if the cannon is there, probably the tank is faced this way. And he says, driver, go. Driver, start driving. But he doesn't understand that's only a commander of a tank. He understands that, look, you're changing the upper part. Cannon this way, and the driver goes straight, and they fall off this bridge down here. They're wounded. Right over here. We're talking about 1967, last night. And the tank fell from here. Later on, nobody knows what's happening. Another very special force from the paratroopers come from there, and they start also trying to take over this area. We're going to continue our walk.
Hey, we're back again. We moved to Tzahal Square, and we are right next to the old city walls, as you can see. Jaffa Street is right next to us, and we are in a very important spot. And if we going back to tell the story of 1948, so we're just talking about Friday afternoon, right after David Ben-Gurion was standing in Rothschild Boulevard and announcing about an Israeli state. Everyone went crazy, all the dancing, all the joy. People were dancing in the streets. No one prepared to the fact that the next morning, while people were still so drunk from last night's celebrations, 5 Arab countries attacked Israel. Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, and Iraq. 5 Arab countries, all against one tiny country that was just born. and then a hard war, the War of Independence, started for 16 long months. This war actually lasted everywhere, all over Israel. And one of the hardest battles were right here in Jerusalem. During the fighting were crucial, were hard around the streets of Jerusalem, the narrow alleys of the old city. And in the middle of that war, around November, two major generals, the Israeli one, Moshe Dayan, the guy with the patch we all know, and the Jordanian one, Abdallah Atel, both decided that Jerusalem needs to stop. And they actually decided that Jerusalem is too tired to fight and we need to sign a ceasefire agreement. So both of them were met right here in this neighborhood, Musrara, just across the street, in a house. They opened a map and they took two pencils. Moshe Dayan took a green pencil and Abdallah Atel took the red pencil, and together on the same map they marked the spots. Everyone marked his own forces' spot, where the Israeli forces are sitting and where the Jordanian forces are sitting. And like in the kids doing and then connecting all the dots, they connected all the dots together with the green line and the red line. And then they set a border. When they did that, no one of them ever imagined in the wildest dream that they're setting a permanent border here in Jerusalem for so long. Both of them thought this is just a temporary border until prime ministers, the more important people will come and set a permanent border. None of them ever imagined they're setting a reality for this city for the next 19 years. But that's exactly what happened. And with these two pencils, you guys probably know the green line. So the green line is based on that green line that was marked right here in this neighborhood. And they actually set a border and split the city to two for the next 19 years. From 1948 until 1967, the border was right here. There was a big, massive wall just across here. There's amazing photographs, shows us the border right here, and Jerusalem finds itself just cut to two. The east part belonged to the Jordanians, the west part belonged to the Israelis. And like that, in the middle of the city, we suddenly have fences, borders that you can't even reach. You can't even get into the old city. Israelis, although it was part of the agreements that they can enter the holy places, Israelis found themselves with no access and no way that they can enter to the old city to see the Western Wall, the Temple Mount, to get to Mount Olives. They were all out of the question. No one could reach them. And this border, this line, this beautiful wall just behind me was actually marked the border. Till here is Israel, all the rest from here and east is actually Jordan. So for 19 years, the city was cut to two. And there's a lot of stories about the reality of these 19 years. For example, a house in Abu Tol that a family lived right on the border. And their house was in one side of the border in Israel, and the restroom, which were in the backyard, were actually in Jordan. So a crazy reality of a family trying to live between two countries, or of neighborhoods, Israeli and Arabic neighborhoods, that they had a beautiful friendship and they were giving pita bread, fresh pita bread every morning. And suddenly they found themselves throwing the pita bread above the fence, kind of a cross-country delivery of pastries. And an amazing story that happened right here in St. Louis Hospital of one of the sick people that were here in this building. This place was run by nuns from Notre Dame Monastery. And one morning, one of the people who was hospitalized here opened the window and his false teeth fell from the mouth. A lady's false teeth, and she found herself in Israel, while her 4 teeth in an area which was no man's land. It belongs to, no one can actually reach there. What can she do? So she turned to the UN forces, who turned to the Jordanians, and along with the Israeli forces, a group of Israeli soldier, Jordanian soldier, and UN person all walked here along looking for the lady's 4 teeth. Eventually, they found them. There is a famous picture of the smiling nun holding the 4 teeth in her hands of the good end for that story that happened right here on the border. But most of the stories, the reality, the real simple life on these 19 days were not that funny and were not that amusing, because living here on the border means that you have to watch your steps. You can't just walk here. That snipers, Jordanian snipers, can shoot you any minute. That you're not going to let your kids to walk here because it's too scary. There were a lot of stories about kids who were playing soccer. Uri Malmilyan, the famous soccer player in Israel, that says that because he was living here in Jerusalem and he had to be so accurate about where he's kicking his ball. Otherwise, his ball will find its way to Jordan and you can say goodbye to that ball. Therefore, he actually trained himself to be so accurate with his ball and with his kicking, and that's how he became such a talented football soccer player. So not just kids playing and not just people who were terribly afraid to walk here, also the meaning that, of border in the middle of the city was that many neighborhoods found themselves in a horrible situation. Slums, poor neighborhoods, areas like Yamin Moshe neighborhood, that today is the most expensive real estate in the city. No one wanted to come here. No one wanted to live on the border when you have such daily danger of snipers and shooting and incidents right here on the border. So for 19 years, we couldn't just stand here as we do right now. We couldn't just walk into the old city from Jaffa Gate like we're gonna do very, very soon. It was impossible. And the local people here in Jerusalem ask themselves, are we ever going to come back to the old city? Can we ever come back to touch the stones of the Western Wall? Can we ever walk on Mount Olives again? The question was not when, the question was if ever. And we are lucky to stand here and to tell the story, a story with an answer. Yes, 1967. Because in 1967, during the Six-Day War, one of the battles were here in Jerusalem. And for 6 days of fighting, Israel more than doubled the territory of Israel. And the hardest battles took place here in order to bring back the area of East Jerusalem back to Israel and to unite the city. And in June 1967, that's exactly what happened. Jerusalem was united, the walls were broken, the fence were off, and now we have one city united. You can see a beautiful city. And Israel had a lot of time of rebuild of what was here. Mamila, for example, which is today a beautiful boulevard of shopping areas, stores, cafes, were a very poor neighborhood that was all destroyed. And after 1967, Israel actually rebuilt it. And just from taking a look around us, we can see the long way that Jerusalem did. From a very poor, small city, it actually expanded so much. And today Jerusalem is the biggest city in Israel. More than 900,000 people. Almost 1 million people live here in Jerusalem, the biggest city in Israel. And as you can see around you, you can see the train, you can see the beating life here in the city center. It's a very blooming city, a lot of economy centers, a lot of high-tech companies, a lot of people, everyone want to live here in this desirable city of Jerusalem.
אנו עוברים את שער האריות. אנחנו בתוך העיר העתיקה. אנחנו בתוך העיר העתיקה. הבית בידינו, כאן תלמיד, הר הבית בידינו. רות שריף תקיפה לו, כל הכבוד, כל הכבוד. חדל, חדל, כל הכוחות חדל. אתה אדוני, נחל ציון ובונה ירושלים.
Did you see? Wow, we're just in the middle of the war, in the middle of the battle. They were shooting at us. We had to disconnect. But now we're up here at the Mount of Olives and the Lion Gate. Whoa, it's so hot today in Jerusalem. And we are on the road of the Lion Gate. What is the Lion Gate? Lion Gate is the eastern gate of Jerusalem. Really, it's called the Jericho Gate, because if you leave Jerusalem, it's called Jericho Gate. You leave to Jericho. But about 800 years ago, Baibars, Mamluk Caesar or Sultan, he just built this gate and he put these lions up above. Others say, no, it's the Ottomans. At the year 1536, 1542, they just found these lions around, so they put them in the gate, and since then we call it the Lion Gate. But who are the lions? Maybe it's for the paratroopers who just entered this gate in 1967, same as we are now, like you saw in the movie, in the clip. But come, follow me, and we're going to go exactly on the footsteps of those soldiers coming in. The first one, first of all, we should also mention there was a tank. The tank was also Ben Gigi, he was a tank driver. He tried to take this gate, open it, and then to go in through the gate. But the problem is that a tank can't fit in this gate. He just broke some of this gate, but instead he stopped here. The paratroopers are going from up above, down below. We're now entering the gate. Now we're inside the old city of today. And what you're seeing now is these amazing policemen, Toda Rabba, for protecting us. And they're protecting of Jerusalem. Kol hakavod, Chag Sameach. They're fulfilling a dream come true. Lagen al Yerushalayim, in Yom Yerushalayim. And we're coming back here, and you're seeing this gate. It's sealed now. This is the Temple Mount. This is Temple Mount. It's called the Gate of the Tribes, and they're going in from here. Paratroopers come inside, and then like you saw in the movie, Har Habayit biyadeinu, Har Habayit, the Temple Mount is in our hands. Temple Mount, the dream has come true. They go inside, and they look for the way to the Western Wall. They know that the Western Wall is holy, and it's weird, you know. They came to the Temple Mount. The Western Wall is just a wall holding up the plaza. But still, they, you know, through hundreds of years, Jews couldn't come to the Western Wall. But anyhow, we're going to leave the paratroopers and go this way. Unfortunately, Jews cannot come to the Temple Mount through this gate. Jews today in Jerusalem are only like tourists. They can come inside the Temple Mount only through the Mugrabim gate. And we're handing back to Dorit.
We are standing next to the walls of Jerusalem, and we are about to walk towards Jaffa Gate. Okay, we're here right next to Jaffa Gate. Jaffa Gate is one of the 8 gates of the old wall, and it's named Jaffa Gate because that's the way to Jaffa since ever. Pilgrims who coming to Jerusalem, taking this way into the city, and this beautiful wall, the old city wall of Jerusalem. Usually people think it's a 2,000 years old wall, 3,000. The truth is that this is a very young wall, only 500 years old wall from the time of the Ottoman Empire, from the time of the Turks. And we are about to enter the city from Jaffa Gate. But before that, we're going to meet one of the soldiers who participate in the fighting in 1967. And we're going to have the privilege to hear the story from his angle, the real story of a real person who fought here in 1967 when Jerusalem was united. Follow me. Let's go meet Benji Hyman. You can see Jerusalem, all the flags, all especially for this beautiful day, Jerusalem Day. And we can see David Citadel right here in the background. The citadel that was located right here at the entrance of the old city. And if you'll take a look around you, you can see the new Jerusalem, the modern Jerusalem, right over here. Because if you guys were joining us 150 years ago for a tour in Jerusalem, all of that was not exist. This is the new Jerusalem, which is a new story, because Jerusalem of 150 years ago was only what's inside the wall. So all of that is a quite new story. We're heading to meet Benji. Usually in Jerusalem Day, the streets are full of people. You can barely walk here. It's so crowded, so packed with people. And today, as you can see around you, the story is different. Here he is. Hey Benji! Nice to meet you. We are on air. On air. Hi. Beautiful. We're on air and we have a lot of people already watching us. And we'll be happy to hear from your experience, 1967. Can you tell us a bit about Jerusalem from your eyes before 1967?
Well, first of all, I was born in Jerusalem.
Wow.
In 1944, and before 67, this whole area that we're seeing here could have been in China, because I don't remember Jerusalem up to 1948. And after 1948, this whole area around here, which we see, was Jerusalem was divided, and the north, the east, and the southern parts were in Jordan, and only the western part was in Jerusalem. And there was a line running right north and south of the city. All the old city was within Jordanian jurisdiction.
So we couldn't just stand here like we do right now?
No, if you did, it would be dangerous, because there were 24 hours a day, there were Jordanian soldiers on the ramparts here, and anyone who stepped into what's called the demilitarized zone and the no man's land, the whole area here was and up to 1948, this was the new commercial center of Jerusalem, and it was completely destroyed. All you saw up to 67 was rubble here.
Wow.
Nothing else.
Wow.
And anybody who would walk into that area would be almost certain to be shot. And in order to prevent children from accidentally being in sight of the Jordanians, who didn't care if it was a child or not, they put the authorities, Israeli authorities, put up big concrete barriers at the end of every road. So at the end of the Mamila Road here, when you went down, you saw these big barriers, and you could go through them around, but then you were again putting yourself at risk.
Wow.
So we had the playground just 100 meters from here, and here again it could have been a completely different city until 67. I brought a map, which I think it might be interesting for you to see, and which I'll show to your viewers. This is the pictorial map. It was done in 1949, and
wow.
And it shows Jerusalem. This is the old city, and this is where we have the Jaffa Gate, and you can see. Okay. You want to put?
Yerushalayim.
Okay. And you can see here the whole area, which is the demilitarized zone. From here westwards, that's Israel, and from here eastwards, including all of the old city, was Jordanian. And that's how the city was divided. I lived around here, so it was about 1 kilometer away. And again, as I say, it might have well been in a different country.
Wow.
Because,
so tell us about your personal story. What was happening in 1967?
well, in May of 1967, there began to be a very tense period between Israel and Egypt because President Nasser closed the Tiran Straits and wouldn't let Israeli ships through the canal. And Israel, at that point, all its attention was on the Egyptian side, who were the much larger and more dangerous ones. On the other hand, the Jordanians were very, very close to our centers of population. And so Israel tried to do everything not to have two fronts at the same time. So what we were doing and what to the 5th of June was to reinforce their defensive position. There was absolutely no offensive intention. And what we were doing, we were reinforcing the defenses of the settlements around Jerusalem. So there was always the fear of 1948 when Jewish Jerusalem was under siege. And so there was always this fear that the Jordanians would once again come and cut off Jerusalem. And what there was something really, I think, in a way unusual, which I don't know until now whether it was just by pure chance or some sort of destiny. But the company that I was in, we were reserve soldiers from the Jerusalem Brigade. On the 4th of June, we were told to leave our earthworks that we were doing and to reinforce the urban line between Jordan and Israel in Jerusalem. And so on the 5th of June, we were re-equipping in what's called the Allenby Barracks, which aren't a long way from here. And when the Jordanians started shelling Jerusalem on the 5th of June, and a bit later, the Jordanian radio said that the Jordanians had taken the UN headquarters, which is in the south of Jerusalem. It's a place where the British mandate built the residence of the British High Commissioner. And since 1948, it was the headquarters of the UN in the Middle East. The people there weren't armed. There were the UN officials and their families. And the Jordanians just took that over and put the UN personnel in 2 rooms and locked those. But that was a tremendous threat to Jerusalem, because since it was in a demilitarized zone, Israel had not fortified that area. And in fact, a very small company of men could walk within 10 minutes of the center of Jerusalem, or could take jeeps and cars and just in 5 minutes be in the southern part of Jerusalem. And so the army headquarters immediately saw the threat, and they said, we have to find a unit which isn't tied down to anything else. And we were that unit, and we were immediately sent to close the gap. So the Jordanian army would not be able to just run through Jewish Jerusalem. So we sort of, until the tanks and other forces came, we were the sort of stopgap, like the sort of hands of the, in order to avoid having the Jordanians come into the Jewish part of Jerusalem.
Wow.
Now, here I must say there's, I mentioned, I think, that we were part of the Jerusalem Brigade. And that for us was very important. during the 1950s, there was still this, again, as I said, the trauma of Jerusalem being cut off. And the fear was always that the Jordanians, without too much trouble, would be able to cut off Jerusalem again. So they said, we will form a brigade, an infantry brigade of soldiers and officers, all of whom live in Jerusalem.
Wow.
And they're Jerusalemites. And so if anything happens that again Jerusalem is cut off from the rest of the country, we can immediately mobilize them, and they have all the arms and equipment they need in Jerusalem.
So this is you guys. Wow.
That's right. And there was sort of added things to that, in that essentially we were protecting our own families and our own homes in a very real sense. And there was also another thing that the Jerusalem Brigade became very, very familiar with every stone and every hillock around Jerusalem. And that paid off very much during the next days when there were some very smart moves which could only have been done by people who really knew the area by heart.
Wow. Last question. As a person who never knew the reality of a border and fences, living borders in Jerusalem, can you describe me the feeling in 1967 when Jerusalem was united?
Well, I'll start from the end. I'll tell you that right now, in all the 50 plus years, whenever I go across the former line, people nowadays don't see it. I always feel there's a sort of click. I'm going somewhere else. It was incredible. We felt elated. We felt sort of that it was destiny. It was history, and we said this is the new Jerusalem. I mean, not just a question of defending. This was now the center of our national being.
Wow.
And if you have time for a short story about that, you still have, or shall we?
Yep.
Okay. At the 1967 war, I was a student at the Hebrew University in sociology and economics. Now, after 1967, there was a lot of excitement about building the new Jerusalem, and I said, I want to be part of the building of the new city. So I took my young family and we went to London, where I studied urban and regional planning.
Wow.
Planning to go back and to work in the Jerusalem municipality.
Wow.
Now, what happened is when we came back in the summer of 1973, because of some family limitations, we couldn't go and live in Jerusalem, and we had to live in Tel Aviv. And I was terribly disappointed. Plus, I also didn't know the local people. So I had to have a job. I took the yellow pages, and under the sort of architects and planners, I went alphabetically and started phoning each one. And I reached the letter B. And the first person who sort of invited me over for an interview was an architect and planner named David Best. And I went to him and he said, I'm looking for a social planner. I have just been awarded a commission by the Israeli Ministry of Housing to build a new neighborhood in Jerusalem, which is called East Talpiot, Armon HaNetziv, the government house. And so the next 4 or 5 years I spent
You had the honor.
planning in Jerusalem, in those same places I was in during the war itself.
That's amazing. So you created a circle, actually. You closed the circle. Wow.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. That was very exciting. Thank you, Benji.
And greetings to all those who are watching us now. And you know, Jerusalem is called the city of peace, Yerushalayim. So all we can ask is that title be fulfilled.
Amen. Thank you so much.
You don't feel the breeze, the mood, the wind I'm feeling right now. It's so hot in Jerusalem, but now the breeze, the wind, you probably understand that we're high. We went higher and higher and higher. We're on an amazing rooftop. But before I'm going to show you the amazing view, I want to ask you, what are we celebrating on Yom Yerushalayim? Is it to celebrate only the people who fought? We're not a people who celebrate war. We don't war. We don't want war. We're a people of peace. It said so in the Bible. We greet each other, shalom, shalom, peace. We say every time we eat bread, after the bracha, the blessing, after the bread, we say, oseh shalom b'mroma, we hope for peace. So we're not celebrating the war. No. We're celebrating the ability of us, that we can just come to Jerusalem, that we can be here, that we can be Am Chofshi Be'aretzeinu, independent country, independent state. We can feel secure. So, I'm enjoying the view. Do you want also to see this amazing view? So we are in a place called the photographer house. Don't show him the view, okay? Don't show them the view. Slava is just behind the camera. Don't show the view. And we're going here, and I'm telling you that this is called the photographer's house. Photographer because a person who was a photographer was living in here, and you know what? It's a very long story. I can't tell you the whole thing. If you want to learn more about the story, just go into link of ateretkohanim.org. Look at the Temple Mount. We're seeing the Temple Mount from up above. Are you seeing it? The Golden Dome. That's exactly where the first temple was. Exactly where the binding of Isaac, according to our heritage. And exactly where King David, King Solomon were building the first temple. Exactly where the Kohen Gadol, the high priests, were there every year. It's right over here in front of us. You're not only seeing the Golden Dome, if you look behind the Golden Dome, Me'achora, you can see a black dome, a Kippah Shchora, which is Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is the holiest place where the Muslims face Mecca and Al-Medina. So that's what you see, Al-Aqsa Mosque. And then you see some of the trees. The trees are just along the western wall. Meaning the western wall starts from the mosque next to us, a Misgad, and goes all along to the next mosque, and then the next mosque, 3 mosques, they're along the western wall. We're used to see the Western Wall Plaza, which is a small piece, only 1/9 of the whole thing. But from here, we're seeing the whole plaza. Today, most of it is trees. So this is the Temple Mount. And then, if we're going this way, we're going to see again Mount of Olives. You know Mount of Olives, we've already been there. And we can see all the rest. But let's go back. Let's go back and see now the old city. Are you seeing the old city of Jerusalem? Look how nice it is. I can tell you that from up above, it just looks nice. It looks united. But if you come to Jerusalem, people would say, that's what most tour guides say, that the old city is divided to 4 quarters. There is the Muslim quarter. We are now in a place called the Muslim quarter. And then there's a Christian quarter. Just behind us, you can see a big tower and then 2 domes. That's a holy sepulcher. Very holy site, or probably the holiest site for most Christians in the world. Holy sepulcher. That's a Christian quarter. You can go back and see over there, you can see the Jewish quarter. The Jewish quarter is mostly symbolized, you can see the big dome, the white dome, which is the Chorva synagogue. That's in the middle of the Jewish quarter. Hi Dorit, can you see us? She's over there. And there's also an Armenian quarter, which is above the Jewish quarter. It's the trees up above. That's the church, the Armenian church. So most people say that there are 4 quarters and another part of the old city which is called the Temple Mount. But the truth is, we're not dividing Jerusalem. It's not really Jewish quarter, Christian quarter, Muslim quarter, or whatever. You know, I want to tell you a short story. It's the first time I understood that the quarters is just written on the map. I took tourists from the United States here in Jerusalem. And when I took them around, they were Christians, and they asked me to come to the Holy Sepulchre. They're very known people, so they brought those bodyguards next to them. And they said, you can go for a tour, but don't go to any Muslim areas, because it's dangerous. I told them, what do you mean don't go to Muslim areas? This is Jerusalem, you know, we're all here together. They said, no, you can't go in Muslim areas. We took a map, and they asked me to highlight the tour, where are we going to go? And as I'm saying, I'm going to go from the Western Wall to the Via Dolorosa. You know, as Christians, they probably have to go to the Via Dolorosa. The stops as a sign. The bodyguard says, no, you can't go there. So where do you want me to take them? You're Christian and you come to Jerusalem. You want to go to your holy sites, don't you? He says, no. Go to another place. You're the guide. You tell me where to go. So I look at the map and I see it's a street called the Chain Street. Sounds good in English, doesn't it? The Chain Street is the market. And it's really called in Arabic Bab al-Salsala, the Suq al-Salsala, but it says in English chain, so we didn't understand too much. He's not a tour guide, so we went to the Chain Street. And then I showed him we're going to go on David Street and then the Christian Street, and then we're going to end up in Holy Sepulchre. And it says, great. We start the tour, and we go to other amazing sites, the tomb of King David, and we go to other places in the walls. And then we go to the Western Wall, and after the Western Wall, I take them, as you know, to the Chain Street. And through the Chain Street, we go up to David Street. But then he suddenly realizes we are in a squeeze market, shook. All the group is like, all of people together, it's Muslims and Christians, everybody all together, and he just said, everybody come together. And as we were walking, we ended up at the Holy Sepulchre. And I explained what's inside, and then, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, the Muazzin starts calling. And as he said that, this bodyguard yells at them, shouts, everybody on the floor! On the floor. Why on the floor? I'm in the middle of, I'm guiding a group. On the floor. In the front of the Holy Sepulchre, they're on the floor. And he's coming up to me, almost choking me, holding me, and saying, where do you take us? I said, no Muslims. And I said, come on, we are in front of the Holy Sepulchre. This is the holiest site for most Christians in the world. Anyhow, my dear viewers, dear friends, my brothers and sisters, Jerusalem can't be split. We're waiting for the day to come that all of us will be together, aren't we? So, I want to tell you that in 1840s, there were more Jews in Jerusalem than Christians and Muslims together. And I want to tell you that most of the Jews lived in this area, which we call today the Muslim Quarter. There were here about 21 synagogues and 6 yeshivas just over here, in this area, which we call today the Muslim Quarter. But then 1929, the riots. First riot 1920, 1921, 1929, 1936, 1939, riots, intifada, tolerance, the Arabs just starting the terror attacks since then. And the Jews had to leave this area. The British say, all the Jews, you have to go either to the new city, new neighborhoods, or you're going to be in a place we call the Jewish Quarter. And since 1929, all this area was empty of Jewish homes. No Jewish homes in all this area. But after 1967, we came back. And some people were looking for their grandfather's house and their grandfather's synagogue. But there's a family living in it. They never bought it, but they're in it. And according to Israeli law, you can't just kick a person out of his house. They're already there from 1929 till 1967. So since then, some organizations, 48 years ago, one of them, the known one, is a Teret Kohanim, and there's also City of David and Kfar Teimanim, and some organizations which took responsibility, and they start doing all the law work or the legal work to bring people back to their homes. Now the problem is because the authorities, the Muslim authorities, do not let Muslims sell houses to Jews. A person who would sell a place, a building, his home to Jews, he would be sent to death or be tortured. So it's very, very difficult. But they're working to bring back. And now today, you look around and you see a lot of Israeli flags around because the Jews are coming back. And maybe, I don't know who is now watching us, but maybe some of you are the ones who supported building Jerusalem of today. But we're going to continue our tour looking from all this amazing area. You are seeing now also the new city over here. And you see also the new city. From 1860s, we started going outside of Jerusalem. The Jews are the first ones who built the first neighborhoods, Mishkenot Shananim, and then Machane Israel and Nachalat Shiv'ah, just near the center of today's city. And then after the Jews built their neighborhoods, the Christians built around here all kinds of compounds, the French compound, then the Russian compound, then the British compound, and they started building outside. And they also opened a gate called the New Gate, because it's new, it's only 200 years. For Jerusalem, 200 years is new. And look at Jerusalem today. And in 1967, the paratroopers go from where you saw before and go enter the Temple Mount. And the brigade from Jerusalem Brigade comes from this area, and they meet at the Western Wall and continue walking all the way back to over there, the Tower of David, the three flags, the Tower of David, that's where they meet. And all the old city is back, and Jerusalem is united. And since then, there's Muslims and Christians and Jews living here in Jerusalem, living side by side. Of course, some leaders would want us to fight each other, but we're waiting for the day to come that we're going to be as one, living here, respecting each other here in Jerusalem. And Jerusalem is like the melting pot, or not only a melting pot. When you melt a pot, people are melted. It's a uniting pot. It's a place a person could be himself, continue his heritage, but together aim for a better cause. Tikkun olam, don't we say that? A tikkun olam, making the world a better place. So, as you're seeing this amazing view, I can tell you so many things about what we're seeing from here. There's so many stories of the paratroopers who came in that were so excited, and the people from Jerusalem Brigade. You know, the people from Jerusalem Brigade, they came from the Dung Gate. And they wanted so much to come to the Kotel. But they prevented them. The High Commander prevented them, stopped them at the Dung Gate, and told them, please stop. As you heard, Benji, he was from the Jerusalem Brigade. They were stopped, and the paratroopers came from up above. Wow. I'm so excited. You know, when we're walking here, when you saw the lead, I was speaking, the director, named Brit, which was next to me, and from Jerusalem, and he said that, you know, it's a little sad because Jerusalem is empty. In a regular Yom Yerushalayim, of Jerusalem, the alleys here are packed, are full of tens of thousands of people dancing with flags and music, and it's just a whole huge party. And today, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we are out and Jerusalem is almost empty. There's some amazing projects, like there's about 3,000 people who are now standing just surrounding the walls of Jerusalem, which is a very nice project, but you can't be close to one another, you can't dance together. But I think thanks to this tour, this live tour, you are now with us. And the thousands of people who are watching with us are now joining us and filling these streets with joy and happiness. So, do you want to sing together? Avir harim tzelul kayain vereach oranim. Right? Remember the song? Remember only the chorus? Yerushalayim shel zahav veshel nechoshet veshel alo lechol shirai. I'm just a violin to your amazing tunes. Look, in the modern world, everybody wants to be a somebody. Sometimes we want to be a part of history. We're part of the world. We're part of the connecting or the connection. And you watching us from all across the world, please, let's find a way to connect each other. We are going to go a little down to the lower floors down here, and let's see some of the paintings which are down here.
Okay, so we are right here in the middle of the Jewish quarter in the Old City, in a street called Cardo. Now, usually, if you guys were with me right here, touring in the streets of Jerusalem, we would have started our tour with a little game, with this. This is an onion. Okay, so I usually bring my onion with me and starting the tour with a little game. I'm throwing the onion, and you have to catch. And tell me, what is the first thing jumps into your mind when I say Jerusalem? It can be a place, a person, a food, anything. And usually the answers are really good. And then I'm asking, and I'm going to ask you guys right now, why do I bring an onion? Why can't I use just a ball? So the truth is that this is Jerusalem. This onion is actually Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is not because it makes you cry in certain days of the year like this day, but it's also an onion because of the layers. If you want to know the story of Jerusalem, if you want to understand Jerusalem, you have to start digging the layers. Only when you're walking between the layers, you are actually realizing the story of Jerusalem. Because Jerusalem is the most desirable city in the world, in the history. Jerusalem moved more than 40 times from hand to hand. Everyone wanted Jerusalem. Everyone fought for Jerusalem. And we're standing right now in the Cardo, which is the real example for that fighting. Because in the times of the Roman Empire, while the Roman Empire, the Romans were ruling Jerusalem, this city, which names the Cardo. Cardo in Latin means heart, was the street, the center of the city, was the heart of the city. And where I'm standing right now was actually the main bazaar, the main market of the city. You can imagine yourself the shops all over, and people walking and buying stuff, and all the vendors shouting, and all the colorful vegetables and fruit. And although it's a very colorful vision, it wasn't very colorful for the Jews, because for the Jews, the Roman time period in Jerusalem was horrible. Right after the Romans destroyed the Second Temple in the year of 70, 2,000 years ago, they actually expelled all the Jews from Jerusalem. They destroyed the Jewish Jerusalem and turned Jerusalem to be Ilia Capitolina. Ilia Capitolina, the Roman capital. And all the Jewish community just vanished. And that lasted also right after Bar Kokhba revolt in 135, when not a single Jew was left in the city. Horrible times for the Jewish community in Jerusalem. Thank you, guys. And we're jumping back to Jerusalem of 2020. Okay, jumping between the layers. And this is Jerusalem of the first century, and we're now coming back to the surf of the city, Jerusalem of 2020. Right after the Romans destroyed the city, in the 4th century, the Byzantine came, and the entire city became Christian. Still, same people, same Romans, but then they were no longer idol worshipping, but Christian people. And in those years, from the Byzantine, for 300 years, not a single Jew was allowed to be in the city. But then when the Muslims came to the city in the 7th century, the Jews came back. The Jews came back to the city, and Jerusalem was full with Jewish people. Right after them, the Crusaders came back, and again, they expelled all the city, and everyone left the city. Until the 1300s. In the year of 1267, a Spanish Jew named Rabbi Moshe ben Nachmanides, was expelled from Spain and came here to Jerusalem. He built his synagogue right over here. We're going to see it in a minute. And he was the founder of the Spanish community in the city. Let's go check the synagogue, which is almost the most ancient synagogue in the Jewish quarter. It's actually the second most ancient synagogue in the Jewish quarter, and we're going to understand where the Spanish community started from, right over here in the center of the Jewish quarter. We are still walking here, and we're about to see that synagogue. So Nachmanides, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, is coming to Jerusalem. We're talking about the 1300s, and he's writing a letter to his son, and that's what he writes. He writes, "Many are forsaken places, and great is the destruction. The more sacred the place, the greater the devastation is. Jerusalem is the most desolate place of all." So Jerusalem in those days is almost nothing. A lot of destruction around here. And among all this devastation, among all this destruction, the Ramban is starting to build the Spanish community right over here. And the year of 1267 is amazing because it's created an amazing circle with 1967, the Six-Day War. We're actually talking about very accurate 700 years of Jewish presence right here in the Old City. Follow me. We'll see the synagogue and we'll try to find where did the Ashkenazi community started here in Jerusalem. Here it is. Right over here, this small structure is the synagogue of the Ramban, where that Spanish community started. And just above it, a beautiful synagogue you cannot ignore, has the weird name of the ruins. Okay, if I would let you guys to guess which structure is named the ruins, no one guessed this beautiful, glorious synagogue. But this synagogue was built this synagogue was built in the year of 1700 by Rabbi Yehuda, the Hasid, who came from Poland, and he had a desire to build a synagogue here in the holy city of Jerusalem. For that, he borrowed money from local Muslims and built this beautiful, high synagogue. Unluckily, he passed away after a couple of years, and he left the local Ashkenazi community with a lot of money that they owed to the Muslims. The Muslims were not very patient about it, and a few years after, they actually destroyed the synagogue. And that's how the synagogue of Rabbi Yehuda, the Chassid, became the ruined synagogue of Rabbi Yehuda, or shortly, the ruins. And this beautiful synagogue was completely destroyed. 150 years after, a group of Ashkenazic Jews came and rebuilt this synagogue for the second time. And then in 1948, while the Jordanians were fighting in these narrow, tiny alleys against the Jews, they actually had in mind, they thought, how do they surrender? How do they beat the Jewish forces? How do they beat the Jewish soldiers? And then they said, maybe we should look for the heart. What is the heart? What gives these people the forces, the meaning? And they looked at this synagogue, and they realized that destroying the synagogue will actually make the soldiers surrender. And in May 27th, 1948, the Jordanians blowed this synagogue that was destroyed for the second time. And the day after, May 28th, 1948, the old city of Jerusalem surrendered to the Jordanians. So there was not just a symbol, it was the actual heart of the Jewish life here in the Jewish quarter. And this place was abandoned for many years, until 10 years ago. The Israeli government, along with a lot of donations, decided to rebuild it for the third and hopefully the last time. And they built it exactly as it was for the first time, the highest structure in the Jewish quarter, highest than the Jewish temple. And built it for the third time. And this is a symbol of hope, a symbol of Jewish redemption. Who fought here in the Jewish quarter were buried in a big grave altogether. Since the battles were all around and there were no way that, like in the Jewish traditional way, you could bury the people outside of the city, the big rabbis gave a permission to bury these people right here and bury them together until other days will come and we can take them out of the city and bury them in Mount Olives, like you saw with Aviv. So 48 people were buried right here. The youngest soldier, you saw his grave on Mount Zion, was Nissim Gini. He was 10 years old kid who participated in the fighting and found his death here. But not just Israeli local kids. There were a lot of new immigrants, Olim Chadashim, who came to Israel back then and found themselves part of the fighting. Esther Teilengold, for example, Esther was born in British. She was British and came here by herself to live in Israel. She was very Zionist and she wanted to live meaningful life in Israel and in Jerusalem. She was a teacher, and while the war broke, she decided to join the warriors and come here and help them. She was doing everything she could. She was cooking. She was helping the warriors, helping the soldiers. And in the battles of 1948 in May, she found her death here and was buried also here. So the stories are very diverse. So many different characters, so many different people who were part of the fighting right here in the Old City. The fighting here, as you can see around you, was almost impossible. 2 long weeks of fighting until May 28th. And the fighting is so hard. When you walk here in the alleys and it's so narrow, everything is so small, it's almost impossible to find here. And therefore, the fighting was so hard. From that grave, which is no longer a grave, we'll go to see a neighborhood, a small neighborhood in the Jewish quarter known as the sheltered housing that during the end of the 19th century became the new part of the Old City. Take a look at the beautiful structure right over here. This structure was built at the end of the 19th century when the city was so crowded. People could hardly live here. The Muslims didn't let the people to build new houses, and people rented tiny, very poor houses and lived in horrible conditions until at the end of the 19th century, a group of Jewish people from Germany and the Netherlands gave a lot of money, along with Rothschild family, to build this neighborhood. That was the most expensive real estate in the city, and a very new one. And families can enjoy 2-bedroom apartment and a kitchen, which back then was a dream that came true. And this neighborhood hosted 100 families for almost 3 generations, from the end of the 19th century until 1948. Because in 1948, when the forces were actually gathering, and the Israeli forces realized that these is our last days in the Old City, Moshe Rusnak, Moshe was the leader of the Jewish community, decided that there is no other chance and surrender. And he was sitting here in the Jewish quarter signing the surrendering agreement with the Jordanians, and the Jordanians asked him to gather all the Jewish people here in this courtyard. There is a very famous picture of John Phillips, an American photographer. He was taking photos for the Life magazine, who took picture of this neighborhood while all these people were gathering here. We're talking about 1,600 Jewish people sitting here in this courtyard and knowing that this is the last hours in the Old City before the Jordanians are going to take over, and the Old City of Jerusalem is not going to be longer part of Israel. And while these people, all of them, 1,600 people are sitting here, 48 of them were already dead, 100 casualties. Abdallah Atel, the leader of the commander of the Jordanians, asked all the soldiers to stand up. He wanted to take them to prison. He wanted to take them as prisoners, and he wanted to separate the soldiers from the people of the community. Out of these 1,600 people, 30 people stood up, and Abdallah Atal was overwhelmed when he realized that all these 2 weeks long days of fighting, so many Jordanian soldiers fought against only 30 Israeli soldiers. He couldn't stand this humiliation. He couldn't bring 30 soldiers to Amman, back to Jordan, so he took 280 people along with him. Most of them weren't even soldiers. The oldest person was more than 80 years old, but all of them went to prison, to the Jordanian prison, right from here to this courtyard, and all the rest of the people, almost more than 1,500 people, left through Zion Gate, Jerusalem, for the last time. So 700 years of Jewish presence here in the Jewish quarter in the Old City ended right here in 1948. Let's walk. So I'm still with you guys. You know, in the book of Zechariah, in the Bible, when the city of Jerusalem is destroyed and abandoned and there is nothing here, Zechariah is saying, Od yishvu zkenim v'zkenot berchovot Yerushalayim ve'yeladim yischaku ba, which means one day, I know it's impossible for you to imagine, but one day old people will sit here around Jerusalem and kids will play around here. There will be a playground, and people could, back then, in those horrible years of exile and of there is nothing that a Jewish remain here, it's hard to imagine. People don't have any hope for that. But Zechariah was right. And what we see around us, kids playing, is actually the fulfilling of a prophecy. They're just coming true in front of our eyes. Everything we see around us is actually new, because in 1967, when Israel came back to the Old City and Jerusalem was united, everything around us was destroyed. The Jordanians ruined all the synagogues, many of the houses. It was all burned down. There was nothing around here. And Israel had a big challenge of rebuilding the Old City after this destruction. So everything we see here is from 1967 and on. Streets are so quiet. I promise you that when you're going to come here for a visit, it's going to seem very different. Let's walk. Kotel? Okay. I want to show you one more bit of history, okay? And that's a very, very ancient and meaningful place here in the Jewish Quarter. Now, what's so beautiful about this place, that you walk here, from one hand, it's a musician, okay? It's a museum of history, archaeology. You can find here ancient sites, 2,500 years old archaeological sites. From the other hand, it's a living, heart-beating city. You can see people living, you can smell the food that people are cooking right now around us. So it's not just ancient history. Jerusalem is not about things that were here.
Back, thank God for the ending, amazing ending for our tour. But first you're looking at Mount Scopus. You should know that for 19 years, it's not only that we didn't have the old city, we had the enemy and tanks and artillery just shooting almost Jerusalem. Israel was very narrow for 19 years, also in the area of Netanya and Kfar Saba. And suddenly after 1967, when I interview a lot of people from 48, 67, they all say, after 48, after 67, they just finally breathe. You're not afraid of just a cannon shooting at you on a regular sunny day. Sof, at last, you feel secure. Mount Scopus was a scopus. It was like looking upon all the area of Jordan Valley for 19 years. And of course, after 67, Jerusalem has expanded. And today we have also the neighborhoods of Gilo on the southern part, and Pisgat Ze'ev, and Nevi Yaakov. And we have an amazing center of the city. And we have the Jewish quarter with so many sites, tourist sites, 14 archaeological sites. And we have the Western Wall tunnels here. And to the right-hand side, the Davidson Center. And we have City of David. You have to come to Jerusalem, an amazing city. For 19 years, we're just afraid of just lifting our head. And today we have all of this. Jerusalem is an amazing city. More than 900,000 people living in it. We have an amazing city with a train just in the middle of the city. No almost pollution of buses in the center of today's modern city. We have you have to come, parties and new innovation. And we don't have time for all of that. I just want to tell you that all of that happened because of 53 years ago, some people took responsibility and defended us, and they came here and they united Jerusalem. On the way here, we met so many policemen, so many soldiers. We thanked them. We saluted them. They were so happy of people saying thank you. And I told them that we have thousands of people with us in the camera. They thought it was an empty city, but thanks to you viewers, we filled up the city and brought joy to the city. But, as we said, the paratroopers went from over there, Lion Gate, they crossed through the Temple Mount, and they got here to this gate, just down below. They had a flag, Zamush, the company commander. He has a flag. He wants to put the flag, but you can't just put a flag along the Western Wall. Remember the Western Wall? The Western Wall which holds up the Temple Mount? Remember the Western Wall, which the lower courses of stones are from the Second Temple original? The Western Wall, which is the retaining wall outside of the temple, but because Jews couldn't go to the temple for hundreds of years, it ends up to be almost as if the holiest spot for Jews, the Wailing Wall. We are crying to go back in. And then Zamush, with the second in command of the brigade, they're coming down, seeing no place to put the flag, so they look for a different place, and they found over there, above the Western Wall, there are some bars, chaluda. You see those bars, iron bars, and they put the flag on the Western Wall. Here I have a picture of it. Do you see it? Here are the bars. Here's the flag. Here is the flag. Here's Zamush putting the flag up there, and someone starts to sing Hatikva, national anthem of Israel. And then they're singing Hatikva. Commanders have to salute. They're saluting, and this general, it's the second in command of the brigade, he's all strong, he has these huge arms, but he's saluting when he's shaking. And as he finished the tikva, he takes the helmet, put it down, and says, Zamush, you're the commander now. And he goes away. And Zamush says, well, I'm a company commander. The second in brigade asked me to be a commander. He's here. What happened? What happened, Stempel? What happened? And he says, no, you're the commander. You're the commander. And he doesn't understand. He goes and he thinks maybe he's been hit. Maybe something hit him. That's why he's putting the helmet down. So he just takes the helmet and throws it away. Where are you injured? Why? And he sees he's crying. His commander is crying. This huge commander, strong commander Rambo. He's crying. He's asking, why are you crying? Where are you hit? I'm not hit. So why are you crying? He's just saying, do you understand? Do you get it? Do you get it? Do you understand the momentum? What? Do you understand that we are now soldiers here uniting Jerusalem? If I would tell my great grandfather that I would be here wearing soldiers with an Israeli flag, speaking Hebrew, singing the national anthem, they wouldn't think in 1,000 years from today, 22 years after the Shoah, the Holocaust, we would be here in Temple Mount in the Kotel. It's a dream that came true. And we would never leave this place. It's not us and the Jordanians. This is not the game. It's us coming back after the Romans kicked us away. Wow, we have a surprise. Look who is with us. We have Dorit with us. Hi, Dorit.
We finally met.
Yeah, thank God. Yeah, we got from the Olive Mountain. How was the tour from there?
Well, it was great.
Wow, that's amazing. We just looked at the old city. So it's like כעיר שחוברה לה יחדיו, like uniting together, and here, being united back here.
Yep.
We're about to finish our broadcast right now, but we can't just finish it without maybe a song.
Maybe a song. So there isn't any other song to remind and to sing here when we stand here other than Yerushalayim shel Zahav. Yerushalayim shel Zahav, Jerusalem of gold. That was written by Naomi Shemer. In 1967, Naomi Shemer was asked by Teddy Kollek, the mythological mayor of Jerusalem, to write a special song for Jerusalem for the Independence Day. And she waited to have the right inspiration, and then she wrote about Jerusalem of gold. And this is one of the most beautiful love songs that was ever written. And when she wrote this song, she never imagined that a bit more than a month later, Jerusalem of gold will be part of Israel. Because back then it was just a journey of missing, of crying, of hoping that maybe one day this place will be ours again. We will be able to come here to touch the stones of the Western Wall, to touch places, to see places that for 2,000 years Jews missed and wanted to come. She wrote this song without even knowing that she's writing a prophecy that is about to come true in a month. Because in June 1967, Yerushalayim shel Zahav was part of Israel back again. And that's no less than a prophecy that came true, a dream that was fulfilled, not just for these soldiers, not just for these people, but for 2,000 years of dreaming and hoping to come back here.
So what do you think about the 6-day war? What's the 7th war? What's the 7th day? What's our part in this war? It's not that, okay, so we have the Temple Mount, what do we do with it now? So the people from Ateret Kohanim, their mission of the 7th day is to put more flags in the old city and to come back to the houses. People on the Scopus Mountain say our 7th day of the war is now to unite Jerusalem and to bring more new understandings and more research and medicine to a better world. And probably the 7th day is also for us, each and every one of us, to do the best he can so the world would be a better place, isn't it? I have here a small thing, simple thing, we call the shofar. Now this very small equipment or tool is with us, with the Temple Mount, for almost 4,000 years. The shofar represents the binding of Isaac and Abraham just over there. The shofar represents also King David and King Solomon when coming and reestablishing the temple, building the first time. The shofar represents building the second temple and the victory of the Hasmoneans. The shofar represents our connection. And the shofar represents also Rabbi Goren, the chief rabbi of the army in the IDF. And when they come down here, he blows the shofar, hoping for a better world. And we are ending this broadcast also today with a shofar. Teka b'shofar gadol lecherutenu, v'sanes lekabetzenu, it says. We're hoping to hear the blow of the shofar. And after that, Jews from all around the world are going to connect and feel as one nation because we are one. We're all different than one each other. We think different, but we're one nation, one people. From Abraham and David, we're one people. And wanting to make this world the best we can, a better place, at least what we can do. So we're going to end with a shofar. Before they start the ceremony tekes of Yom Yerushalayim, you're hearing the rehearsals. This is live broadcast from Jerusalem, Yom Yerushalayim 53. So honoring Jerusalem, let's try. Yom Yerushalayim Sameach. All the best.
I got to keep on moving, stay Jerusalem if I forget you. Fire not gonna come from it on Jerusalem if I forget you. Let my right hand forget what it's supposed to do. Jerusalem if I forget you. Fire not gonna come from it on Jerusalem if I forget you. Jerusalem, if I forget you. Jerusalem.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, Post Office Box 360, Stamford, Connecticut 06904. Or you can call the JBS Pledge Line at 833-MY-JBS-TV. That's 833-695-2788. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. We thank you for your kind support.